In the United Kingdom, a cardinal is calling on Catholics to raise their voices against a bill that would legalize assisted suicide. Cardinal Vincent Nichols, Archbishop of Westminster, wrote a pastoral letter read to Catholics at Mass this past weekend. In it, he criticized not only the bill, but also the Parliament and its lack of due process regarding the measure. Specifically, he questioned why there hadn't been a royal commission or independent inquiry, saying, quote, "The bill itself is long and complex and was published just days before MPs voted on it, giving them inadequate time to consult or reflect upon it. The time for debate was minimal. The committee examining the bill took only 3 days of evidence. Not all voices were heard, and it comprises an undue number of supporters of the bill. In short, this is no way to legislate on such an important and morally complex issue." To dive further into both the conviction and Livia Tossici-Bolt and assisted suicide in the UK, Dr. Calum Miller, a research fellow at the University of Oxford, joins us now to break it all down. Calum, thank you for being with us today. The judge that convicted Tossici-Bolt told the court that Tossici-Bolt lacks insight that her presence could have a detrimental effect on women attending the clinic, their associates, staff, and members of the public. This argument about protecting the mental health and well-being of those seeking and perpetuating abortion is one commonly made when discussing buffer zone laws. What would you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, the court said a whole bunch of outrageous things, including that she was intimidating. Now, they've met Livia because they were the ones, prosecuting her. I've met Livia. She is the furthest thing from intimidating, especially in this setting where she's really just offering consensual conversations, didn't even mention abortion on her side, didn't speak to anyone unless she was spoken to, and so on. And so, yeah, this is really quite outrageous. But when it comes to the mental health side of things, we actually have specific evidence. There have actually been studies on this topic. How is the mental health of women affected by people outside of abortion clinics? Well, those studies, there are two of them they found, is that even when there are protesters outside the abortion clinic, it actually has no significant lasting impact on the mental health of women who go for abortions. And so we can imagine that when there's not even a protest, but simply someone standing there silently with an offer to talk if somebody wants, this is, way less than even a protest. And so we can only imagine that the impact on someone's mental health would be even less, or might even be positive, given that many women, perhaps a quarter of women, are having abortions because they're forced to by somebody else. And so the mental health argument, might sound good to begin with, but when you look at the actual evidence we have on this subject, it's really completely baseless from an evidential point of view.
And it's so important to follow the evidence. Now, the judge also stated that it was important to note this case is not about rights and wrongs of abortion, but about whether the defendant was in breach of the PSPO. How have public space protection orders changed the conversation around these issues?
Yeah, so these were orders that were brought in to, prevent really sort of extremely antisocial behavior, people being loud and rowdy, in the middle of the night, being intoxicated, keeping everyone up awake at 3 a.m. in the town center kind of thing. But what we've seen is that they've expanded massively, basically to give local councils, without any sort of parliamentary oversight at a national level, basically give those councils authority to prohibit anything they want, with very little oversight, very little respect for basic freedoms. And so, we can only imagine how these could be applied in future. If they think that it's okay to ban certain kinds of speech or even silent prayer or offers of support when it comes to abortion, you can imagine that they would have similar goals in mind when it comes to banning other sorts of protest, whether it's protest against wars in other countries, protests against laws that are being made, protests against corruption. Really, if you're going to say that we can use these public space protection orders to ban protest and even ban silent prayer and offers of consensual conversations, there's really no limit to how they can be used to ban all sorts of other perfectly legal speech or actions, or even just being there. in certain public places.
And changing the subject a little bit, Cardinal Nichols has written a pastoral letter urging the faithful to call their MPs to vote against the assisted suicide bill being introduced. In addition to objecting to the bill in principle, Cardinal Nichols is making the argument that the bill is long and complex and that it has not been properly scrutinized or being given the adequate time to consult or reflect upon an issue that is literally a matter of life or death. Why is an issue of such magnitude being rushed, and is this a common occurrence?
It's quite uncommon, actually, and this has been a notable feature of the euthanasia legislation in the UK, that it has been so rushed. They say that more time has been spent, far more time actually has been spent debating fox hunting in Parliament than debating the legalization through our National Health Service of state-assisted suicide and euthanasia. And so it really is extremely concerning, and we're hoping and praying that that leads people who voted for the bill at the second reading to decide against it at the third reading. We need about 20 to 30 members of parliament to change their mind. In a parliament of 650, that's not a huge number. So we do have hope that this could still be defeated. And given how rushed this has been, given that they have accepted almost no amendments, given that they have dispensed with pretty much every safeguard and every suggestion for how to make this safer, we're hoping that members of parliament who did support it are now seeing that this is really done without any guardrails, without any security or safety for patients, without any real scrutiny in parliament, and that they will decide that actually overall this is a bad idea to go through when the final vote happens towards the end of April.
Well, Calum, thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to having you back.
Thank you.